So, for those who are considering a career change or mulling perhaps even a shift internally in their company, how would you advise them to go about getting started on that move?
So I would think about this in two parts. There's first, very importantly, the reflection piece. And then after that, there is the action piece. And the sequence matters here. I think a lot of people maybe feel guilty taking a lot of time trying to figure out what they want or mulling over what's important to them, or maybe I guess the hyperbole here is looking up into the sky and wondering what my dreams are. That's important to do. Before you go off and relaunch your career, you've got to get really clear on what do I want my career to look like. And so there's two things I'd recommend you do before you spring into action. And one of the first things that you can do, which can be very helpful, is to get very clear on your values. And this term values gets thrown around a lot. So what I mean by values, and what I think most people mean by values, are these things that are non-negotiable in your life, the things that you feel you must have. And if you didn't have them, things would feel really off in your career. So for example, for me, one of the most important things for me is balance. And whether it's work-life balance or just having a well-balanced portfolio of work, I like to have variety. I don't like to have all of my eggs in one basket. So that's really important to me. And whenever I've been in situations where that hasn't been present, I've felt really unhappy. So I would take stock of, first of all, how satisfied are you across the various domains of your work? You could consider things like location, industry, organization, function, role, and salary. And then if you find yourself unhappy with one of those domains, just ask yourself, like, why am I unhappy with this? And it typically is because it's in conflict with one of the values that you find most important to you. So take a moment, think about what are your top 3 values, and just make sure that you're honoring them. And if you're not sure where to start with how to define your values, this is something you can Google. There's exercises, there are questions around the people you admire, the animals that you like, the types of people who have characteristics that you want to emulate. Those are all clues into what you value. Things that irritate you, things that frustrate you, that can also give you a clue into what your values are. So I do that first. The other thing I would do is I would try to get clear on what you want this specific chapter of your career to be about. So I like to think about one's career in chapters, just like a book would have different chapters. And these different chapters represent different things for you. You might be in a chapter in your career, maybe typically earlier on, where you're building the nuts and bolts and foundations of your skill set. Or maybe you're in a chapter in your career where you really are trying to develop your experience navigating the politics of an organization or people management, or maybe you're just CV building. Or like for me right now, it's really important for me to have a good work-life balance because I've got a young daughter at home. So you got to think about, like, what chapter am I in? And to realize that you can't really have it all in every chapter. And so if you've got a young child at home, for example, work may not be able to be as much of a priority as it was for you before. And that's not to say it's going to always be that way, but for this particular chapter, you may need to reprioritize. So anyway, I would think about what chapter you're in and think about how you can serve the unique interests you want to serve at this specific chapter. And then finally, once you've done that reflection, is to actually put yourself out there, take action, begin to explore, whether it's a side project or an evening course, or maybe you skill up through a certification program. You could consider networking. I always think it's useful to connect with people who are both within your current network, but also in your maybe target industry through informational interviewing, but to put yourself out there and to take action, because by taking action, that is what's going to ultimately create opportunity.